school districts across North Alabama and the rest of the country develop plans for the future. Today, the president questioned the advice of Dr. Anthony Fauci. He warned against reopening schools in the fall without more robust testing.
He wants to play all sides of the equation because, it's just, to me, it's not an acceptable answer, especially when it comes to schools.
Here in Alabama, the decision is still in flux, with State School Superintendent Dr. Eric Mackey expected to provide some additional guidance, possibly as soon as next week.
Way 31's Will Robinson-Smith is live outside of the Madison City School Board office. The board named its new superintendent tonight, and he is already preparing to take on this uncertain future. Will.
Yeah, that's right. Dr. Ed Nichols spent 4 years as the superintendent of Decatur City Schools, and in fact, he spent a couple months as the interim superintendent here for Madison City Schools. And while he doesn't officially start the job until June 1st, he says it's time to already start preparing for what the fall will look like.
The thing we have to do between now and that time is to develop multiple plans so that we have a flexibility.
Dr. Ed Nichols is wasting no time as the newly appointed superintendent of Madison City Schools. As the school system waits for guidance on returning to in-person teaching next school year, he says virtual learning likely won't completely disappear in the fall.
We have found that we can provide that virtual education, and so we're going to look to see how that will be part of what we do in the future.
Dr. Nichols will take over for the interim superintendent, Eric Terrell. He says there are tentative plans to bring some in-person activities back as early as June 8th.
With some activities, and then with older kids, 13 and older, and then probably looking at July with younger kids, 13 and younger. But that could change. So that's going to go off the lead of what Dr. Mackey has for us.
Other districts like Hartselle City Schools are also making plans for reshaping class sizes to meet social distancing best practices.
We need to come up with a plan of how to return. Do we all return at one time? Do we have an alternate schedule where one grade comes in at a time? Or do you make your high school campus more like a college campus and where students come in at certain times for classes?
As far as how much widespread testing should factor into these decisions, Dr. Nichols says that will be up to the state to decide.
This is not something that is isolated to just communities. People are fluid and with transportation, and so we've got to be looking at that across the state as well as by our community and take the guidance from the Alabama Department of Public Health and give us that information.
Now, Dr. Jones tells me that Dr. Mackey instructed her and other superintendents with early start dates to consider pushing those back to as late as August 20th or potentially a little bit later than that. Now, there is a State Board of Education meeting that is scheduled for tomorrow. We reached out to the State Board office to see if they would be discussing any of the reopening plans for the fall and what that strategy might look like during tomorrow's meeting. It's not officially on the agenda, but we were told that it could come up during general discussion. Reporting live in Madison, Will Robinson-Smith, Way 31 News.